So today I wanted to do a little video on my recovery process, just in case some people out there have been feeling aches and pains in your body, which I'm sure after skating many hours, you're probably gonna feel. So here's a little look into my routine. Right here, I'm using my Hyper Ice vibrating foam roller. And if you have access or can afford one of these, I highly suggest it because while you're foam rolling, it vibrates, and that helps with your blood flow and circulation, and blood flow and circulation helps with the healing process. I usually, on average, roll about a minute every side of my leg, every part of my leg. So when I start the foam rolling process, I put both legs on the foam roller and I roll my quads just to kind of get things rolling. So I start from the top of my hip down to the top where my kneecap is. And with the foam roller, you want to just make sure you roll only where it's muscle. You don't want to roll on the bone. It's uncomfortable and it's not really doing anything for you. So after I roll for a minute on both quads, I like to go single leg. And as you can see right here, sometimes I'm lifting up my bottom part of my leg. I'm doing that on purpose because as you roll upwards and bend your leg, it helps to stretch the muscle and elongate it to help relieve tension that might be building up in my knees. I do about a minute here on this side and then I switch over to the other side. You know, a lot of times you might have aches in your knees or in your joints, and it might not be that you're having knee problems or ankle problems. It might just be that your muscles are really tight, and your muscles, they attach at your joints. So the tension might just be built up there. So that'll help relieve pressure there. After I do the quads, I do the sides of my legs, which are called the IT bands. And I think those are like a ligament, and forgive me, I'm not a doctor or a chiropractor, so I don't have the proper terminology. I just know I've been doing this a long time and this really helps. So the side of your legs are very important because if your IT band gets too tight, again, it can pull at your knee and make you feel like you're having some knee issues. So I go about a minute on each side. And then after I'm done with that, I like to roll out my glutes, AKA my butt cheeks. And you know, as a skater, you use your butt cheeks very often on every trick you do, because that's where you get the power to jump from, along with your quads as well. And when your glutes are tight, that can actually make you feel like you're having lower back pain. So if you feel like you're having lower back pain, again, you might not actually be having back issues. It might just be that your butt cheeks are too tight. I like to make sure I roll these out, again, about a minute on each side. I lift my leg up onto my other leg and roll out the side of my leg that is over the top of the other leg because it helps stretch the muscle as I'm rolling it. After I'm done with that, I like to roll out my hamstring. And as you can see right here, I'm rolling out my hamstring and I got my other leg crossed over it. For me, I like to do that because it puts more pressure on my hamstring. It makes me feel like I get a deeper rollout. But again, if you're just beginning, feel free to not do this because it might hurt. I've been doing this a long time, so I've built up to this point. So you can start by just rolling out both your legs on the foam roller without putting more pressure on them. As you get more comfortable and you feel like you need a deeper roll, then you can put more pressure on it. But again, you have to be the judge of where you're at. So after I do that, I take this softer foam roller. This one has cushion on it because I'm rolling out my back. And when you're rolling out your back, you can't help avoid your spine. So your spine is gonna, you know, touch the foam roller. And if it's a hard foam roller, it hurts your spine. So right here, what I'm doing is getting the muscles right along the side of my spine. And also an added bonus is it cracks your back and it helps elongate your spine and do a little bit of an alignment on your back. Next, I like to roll out the bottom part of my legs. And for this one, I use the hand roller because it's really hard to roll out your calves and your shins on the foam roller on the ground because you have to use your hands, your arms, strength to roll out. And I don't know about you, but my arms get really tired. My arms, shoulders, and everything get really tired trying to do that. So I just use the hand roller, and I like to get my calves all the way basically down to the top of my foot, all the way up to the back of my knee. It really is beneficial for me. Then I like to go on the front and roll out my shin muscle, not on the shin bone, but I roll out the muscle just to the side because those parts of my legs get really tight from doing like lots of kick flips and flip tricks, so I like to make sure I loosen that up. After I do the bottom part with the hand roller, I like to use my Hypervolt gun here. If you have access to one of these, I highly suggest it. So again, I just go through the calves. I get into more details because you can get into like areas that the roller might not quite be able to get. The areas that are like closer to where there's bone and you can't quite get to it with the roller. So this gives you a little bit more freedom to get in those like harder to reach places. So I just go through all the same areas, front of my legs, the shins, even lightly on the top of my ankle, the front of my ankle. I like to go around the sides of my Achilles tendon, the lower part of my calves, because, you know, as skaters, we use these so much. And again, with the calves, it's gonna take time, because if you're like me and you've been skating a while, your calves are gonna be very sensitive and it's gonna hurt really bad. But again, if you stick with it, after a few weeks, the pain will lessen and lessen. So just, you know, don't try to go too aggressively too soon. Build up. So after I do that, I like to take this little lacrosse ball, and you can use a tennis ball, baseball, maybe even a golf ball, or just go get a lacrosse ball. And I like to roll out the bottom of my feet with this, because the bottom of your feet get really tight as well. And if you're having feet pains, or even like Achilles kind of pains, this could be very helpful for it, because your tendons under the bottom of your feet take a lot of abuse. So I like to roll them out, loosen them up, and that relieves the tension around the back of my ankles, under my feet, and it just, I've been noticing it's been very helpful for my recovery process. And I like to, when I'm rolling, kind of lift my toes as I'm rolling back, again, because it helps get you that deeper stretch as you're rolling. And that's kind of like an area most people might not think of when it comes to recovery, you know, but you got to try and get every part of your body that you use when you're skating, because it's going to relieve a lot of pain, aches and pains that have been built up over the years. So I do that, and then what I like to do is I like to take this sphere. Again, this is given to me by my friends at Hyper Ice. Shout out to them. No, this isn't a sponsored video. I'm just giving them a shout out because they hooked me up. And this one vibrates, but again, if you don't have access to this, you can go get a softball, a baseball, tennis ball, something like that. And I like to roll out my hips with this. And again, this gets into the areas that a foam roller just doesn't quite get into. And as a skater, we use our hip flexors a lot, so I'm sure a lot of people can relate to having pains up there. This is the side of my hip, like right above my hip bone, and I like to just roll out. Again, this is gonna hurt at first, so be careful how much pressure you're putting on it, and you know, just build up as you go. So I like to get the side of my hips, front part. It just really has been very helpful and beneficial for me. So after I'm doing all the foam rolling, then I like to stretch afterwards, because my legs feel like they're loosened up and I feel like I can get a deeper stretch if I stretch after I foam roll. So I start off touching my toes. That stretches my hamstrings, which are very important because they get very tight. And then I like to do this one leg at a time. And what's happening here is, again, I'm stretching my hamstrings, but also I'm stretching the hip of the opposite foot. Hip mobility is very important in skating. It helps with a lot of tricks, and it helps prevent a lot of injuries. So again, I get about 30 seconds to a minute on every stretch that I do, depending how sore I feel, depending how much I need it. And when you're stretching, you don't need to overdo it to hurt yourself, but go just past your limit where it's just a little bit uncomfortable, because that's how you're gonna get more and more flexible over time. But don't overstretch it, because you don't want to pull the muscle. And then here is just the full hip stretch. I don't know all the muscles that it gets, but it's really helpful. After that, I like to do this one where I get my adductors. Adductors are kind of like the muscles that lead up towards your groin. If you've ever felt like you pulled your groin muscle or something like that, it's probably your adductor. I'm guessing. I'm not a doctor, but that's where that pain's probably coming from. So I go down the middle for about 30 seconds. Then I go each leg on the side. Again, this is more hamstring flexibility, but I'm just getting different angles just to make sure I get everything. And if you can't touch your toes yet, don't worry, just keep at it and eventually you can get there. So once I do that, I like to do this one. It's like a hip mobilizer. It's not too much of a stretch, but it just helps open up and loosen my hips. So once I do those, then I like to do this one right here. And this one is actually a stretch for my butt cheek, my glute. And I like to keep my back straight and lean forward because that's how you get the most leverage for it. And it really helps also open up the hip. I'm very focused on stretching my hips lately. I've gotten older, they get very tight. There's lots of small muscles up in there that get really tight and start becoming painful if you don't keep them loose. So I get each side there. And after I do that, I like to grab a chair and stretch my quad muscle. Very important to stretch that muscle. It helps keep pressure off your knees. And the reason I'm raising my hand is because I'm stretching a muscle called your psoas. Your psoas is the only muscle in your body that connects your legs to your upper body. And as skaters, we use that a lot. That's the muscle that helps lift your leg along with the hip flexors. So I like to get a deep stretch in there as well. And if your psoas muscle is too tight, it can also contribute to making you feel like you're having lower back pain. So if you stretch that out, that might help alleviate some pressure in your lower back. After I'm done, I like to use these Normatec legs. These are sleeves that get filled up with air that massages your legs and helps push the lactic acid out of your legs up towards your heart so that your heart can circulate it and help flush it out quicker. Now I know not everyone has access to these, but if you do have access to them, I suggest you use them anytime you can. And again, if you don't, as long as you're stretching and rolling out consistently, that's gonna be your main key. So after I do the Normatecs, I like to go in the cold plunge for 10 minutes. And when I say I like to, I don't mean that I like to. I don't like it, but it's really helpful and I like the benefits that I get afterwards. I keep it at 50 degrees. I know that doesn't sound that cold, but trust me, it's freezing. And I sit in there for 10 minutes and I feel like I like doing this last because it feels like it really seals in everything else that I did. All the stretching, the foam rolling, the Normatecs, it really just feels like all that stuff finally gets sealed in and it'll get me set for the next day. So that's pretty much my recovery routine. You know, make sure you drink a lot of water after you foam roll and stretch as well. That's very important. And after that, you know, get a good night's sleep and, you know, call it a day. So hopefully this helps you guys. I hope you guys can implement all or some of this stuff into your daily routine. And if you do it consistently, I promise you, you'll notice after a couple weeks that you feel much better and your skate sessions will probably be much better quality skate sessions. This is good for after you skate, you work out, whatever activities you do. This is very helpful. It's been very helpful for me, and hopefully it will be very helpful for you. So hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you can apply some of this stuff into your routine and that it works for you the way it's been working for me. Thank you for watching. Much love.